Okay, guys, we're back with A Day No Pigs Will Die. We're on to chapter 11. In chapter 10, Rob and Pinky went to Rutland Fair. Pinky won her ribbon for Best Behaved Pig, blue ribbon. And Rob got sick and threw up on a judge's shoe at the end. Here we are with chapter 11. Pinky won a blue ribbon, Papa. That was the first thing I said when Ben Tanner shook me awake that night to tell me I was home. I must have slept all the way because I didn't recall much of the trip back. Soon as it got dark, I just went to sleep, sitting there between Mr. and Mrs. Tanner and holding on tight to the blue ribbon. Pinky won a blue ribbon. It's for Best Behaved Pig, I said. And, said Mr. Tanner, he ought to have a second one for Best Behaved Boy. He worked my oxen like he was born with a wand in his hand. How are his manners? Asked Papa. Thank you, Mr. Tanner, I said quickly, and thank you, Mrs. Tanner. I had a very good time. Bless you, Rob, she said. The stock will be here as soon as the fair closes, Mr. Tanner said. I'll send the boy for his pig, Papa said, and we're beholden to both you folks, Brother Tanner. We to you, Haven. I got offered $500 for my yearling oxen. $500, and I'd even have growed, thanks to your boy who helped Barnum and work 'em at the fair. But I won't sell them too. I'm glad he did you proud, Papa said. Papa turned his grays and off they went, Bess holding her hat with the flat of her hand. I just stood there and watched them go up the road in the dark till I could no longer hear their rig. Good neighbors, I said. Best a man can have, said Papa. Benjamin Tanner will stand without hitching. Mama came running out the house and toward the barn, holding out her hands. I ran to her and hugged her clean and warm and hard as I could. Aunt Carrie was there, too. I wanted to tell her, as I hugged her, as to how I spent the 10 cents that she gave me, but I thought better of it. 10 cents for a used piece of saddle soap was a dear price. Mama, I said, looky here. Look at Pinky's blue ribbon. She won it. Of course she won it, Mama said. She's the prettiest pig in learning. First prize, I said. I remember in a faint sort of way that the other pigs that the kids had raised all had blue ribbons too, but no matter. I was sure that only Pinky had won first prize. She'll be home in a few days, I said. I can't wait, said Papa, and Mama smiled. Into the house with you, Mama said. It's way past your bedtime, and you'll never get up for chores. That sort of stopped me. Papa, you did all my chores today? Sure did, and butchered hogs besides. Thank you, Papa. I'm beholden. I accept your debt, Papa said, and come morrow, you'll work double. That's meeting right, I said. I already owe you for the sorghum. 3 bags full, said Papa. I expect payment after your pig has a first litter. Mama said, you men folk don't know when it's time for bed. How about some pie, Rob? Please, I said. We all sat around the lammas table in the kitchen eating blackberry pie, hearing me talk about Rutland Fair. I told all I could tell and made up the rest. I never let out a word about the two main events. I never left out a word about the 2 main events. The show in a bob and bib and the blue ribbon for Pinky. I never let on that I got a touch of the vapors and lost all my breakfast on the judge's shoe. A tale like that would only distress Mama and Aunt Carrie, so why tell people what they don't cotton to hear? Besides, there's enough good things to jaw on, like when the whole state of Vermont watched me work the oxen in the show ring, how the man shouted my name. I stood up, gave a real close copy of how he done it, even marched around the kitchen table in a circle 3 times, just like at Rutland. Rutland, said Papa. I never went there, boy or man, and now here you go all that way by your lonesome with the neighbors. It's not so big, I said. What sets you back is the noise. It was as noisy as at night as it was in the morning, and during fair week. I guess it's like a big brass band that can't stop playing. Goes all the while. Just like a mouth I know, said Papa. Got blackberry all over it. Ha, ha, ha. We all got a good laugh on that. Before I went over to the sink pump, washed off. Sure was good to be home, and it was hard to believe that I was gone less than a day. It felt like I had been to a star. I'd have talked on about Rutland for the whole night through, but Mama chased me upstairs to bed. Once I was under the covers, she came into my room and kissed me goodnight. I was just about near asleep by the time she tiptoed and shut the door. "How's the traveler?" I heard Papa ask. "Back," Mama said. "Back from a dream." During the night, there was a noise outside in the hen coop. I heard the hens cackle and scold. I saw a lit lantern in the upstairs hall, and then all was quiet. I tried my holy best to wake up, but I just couldn't. Right after I shut my eyes, it was chore time. Daisy had to be milked and watered and fed. Solomon the same, except only a fool would put a pail under him. I was pouring the milk for separating to get the cream off when I saw Papa leaving the hen coop with a dead hen. "Weasel?" Papa said. "Hardly no mark on her." "Chicken for supper, Papa?" "Yup. Say, you want to see something?" "Sure." Papa took me into the tack room. Hanging on a peg was a burlap sack that moved around a bit, quite a bit the closer we got. "What you got, Papa?" "What I got is that weasel. First one ever could corner and sack, and he's got a mouthful of mean teeth." "Can I look?" "Later, when I reason out what to do with him. He's caused me too much grief to kill without a ceremony." "You aim to let that weasel go free?" "Not likely." "Papa, I was at Mrs. Bascom's last week." "So?" "You know her hired man, Ira Long?" "Heard his name." "Well, he's got a little terrier. I seen her when I went to thank Mrs. Bascom for asking the Tanners to take me to Rutland." "Full growed?" "I'd say so, Papa, but real young." "After we breakfast, boy, you run down there and tell Brother Long that we got a weasel to try his dog on, and he's welcome to it." "Sure will. I never see a dog get weaseled." An hour later, a horse and rig pulled into our lane. On it was Ira Long and me and his dog, Hussy. She was a sweet little dog, and all the way home as I was holding her, I wondered how well she'd fare against a weasel. Papa was there to meet us, and he gave Ira his hand. "Haven Peck," he said. "Glad you could pay us call, brother." "Ira Long, I already know your son." "Most folks do." Both men laughed. I don't know why, but I laughed too. "He's a good un," said Ira. Papa looked at the small gray and white terrier that I was still holding in my arms. "You tried that dog on weasel yet?" "Nope, but I hear you got one." "Big one," Papa said. "Mean as sin." "Papa," I said, "why do folks weasel a dog? Is it for the sport of it?" "No," Papa said. "There's earthly reason. Once you weasel that dog will hate weasels till her last breath. She'll always know when there's one around. She'll track it to its hole, dig it out, and tear it up. A man who keeps a hen house got to have a good weasel dog." "That's the truth of it," Ira said. "Every weasel in the county will keep wide of my little Hussy." When the three of us walked into the tack room, I was still carrying Hussy. Soon as we got there, that burlap sack jumped around like it was loco, and I could feel Ira's little terrier shaking in my arms, just like she knew what was going to happen and what she'd have to do to stay alive. She was whining too, just loud enough to hear. "I got an idea she'll make a good weasel dog," Ira said. "We'll see," said Papa. He picked the sack off its peg. Inside, the weasel was hissing and spitting. He couldn't see a dog, and she couldn't see him, but they knew. They sure knew of each other. "I'll get a barrel," I said. Handing the dog to Ira, I ran up to the cellar where there was a good-sized apple barrel that was empty and waiting for this year's orchard. It had a wooden lid on it, which made it perfect for what we wanted it for. I set the barrel on its side. Holding the lid under one arm, I rolled the barrel down to where the men were waiting. Ira was holding his terrier, and Papa had the neck of the burlap bag tight in his hand. I stood the barrel up on its end, mouth open, holding the lid ready. "In you go, Hussy," Ira said, placing his little dog inside the barrel. "You give him what for?" She sure was shaking, that dog. Made the whole barrel sort of tremble. Papa came forward with the sack. "Is your lid ready?" he said to me. "All set." Soon as I drop it from the sack, you lid that barrel, you keep it lidded, you hear? Yes, Papa. Without more ado, Papa just emptied the sack. He poured the weasel right down inside the barrel on top of the dog. I slammed the lid into place. I could hardly hold on, and Ira come over to keep the barrel up tight. Papa, too. We heard a lot of scratching and chasing and biting inside the dark of that barrel. The dog was bigger. The weasel sure had the darkness on his side. To be honest, I thought a fight between a dog and a weasel was going to be a real excitement, but I hated every second of it. Whole thing seemed senseless to me, and I was mad at myself for standing there to hold down the barrel lid. I even felt the shame of being a part of it. From the look on Papa's face, I could see that maybe he wasn't enjoying it so much either. At last, all the noise stopped. There wasn't a sound. Papa nodded to me, and I slipped the lid a crack, just enough to let some light in so we could look down inside. Then we heard the little dog cry. It was a whine that I will always remember, kind of sound that you hear but never want to hear again. Ira pulled the lid of the barrel away and looked inside. The weasel was dead, torn apart into small pieces of fur, bones, and bloody meat. There was blood all over the inside of the barrel, top to bottom. The dog was alive, but not much more. One of her ears was about tore off, and she was wet with blood. She just danced her little feet, splattering the pool of blood in the bottom of the barrel and making that sound in her throat that almost begged someone to end her misery. Ira reached down to lift her out of the barrel. As he picked her up, her teeth bared as she ripped open his hand. He gave out a yell and dropped her on the ground. One of her front paws was chewed up so bad it wasn't even a paw anymore. All of the bones in that foot must have been split to pieces. It's nothing but a raw stump. Kill her, I said. What? Said Ira, his hand bleeding into the cuff of his shirt. She's dying, I said. If you got any mercy at all in you, Ira Long, you'll do her in right now. She killed the weasel. Isn't that what you wanted to have her do? She's crazy with the hurt. If you don't kill her, I will. You mind your tongue, boy. You're talking to your elders, said Ira. The boy's right, Papa said. I'll get a gun. Until Papa come back with the rifle, little hussy just lay on the ground and whimpered. Papa put a bullet in her, and her whole body jerked to a quivering stillness. Nobody said a word. The three of us just stood there, looking down into the dust at what was once just a friendly little pet. I swear, Papa said, I swear by the book of Shaker and everything that's holy, I will never again weasel a dog, even if I lose every chicken I own. I got a spade out of the tool room and dug a small hole, buried her under the timothy grass near an apple tree. I even got down on my knees and said her a prayer. Hussy, I said, you got more spunk in you than a lot of us men folk got brains.